Hello, my name is Temitope and I am the creative director for QA QA is a community that is passionate towards your learning and development. So on this channel, we upload videos from all our trainings and even other videos in the aspect of software testing and automation. Do well to subscribe to our channel. Now, what are you waiting for? Subscribe. Also watch our videos, like and share. Add your comment too. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now. Okay, so I have this PDF that I've prepared. It's just a tiny PDF. I said, welcome to the Technical Bootcamp 2024. Originally prepared by me too. Let's face it. What is SQA, that is Software Quality Assurance? What do you think about software testing? And how do you qualify to be a software tester? How do you make your name in the software testing industry? All right. So it's like I was talking about the history of software testing. There was a time that there were no software testers, and the software developers were the ones that were testing the applications. But as time went by, 2010 into 2015, we started having software testers, and most of the time they were doubling up as a business analyst too. So we call these people the three amigos. That is the business analyst, the developer, and the software testers. So they are the three amigos, right? So these people, they come together. The business analysts bring out a document and say, okay, this is the software we want to develop. This is the list of the functions we are expecting this software to do. This application is, let's say this application is an Uber application. It's for transportation. It will be used in the transportation industry, right? And we already have a business that is running, but we need an application that we ensure that the business runs smoother, faster, and easy for our users. So we design an application. So the application is meant for these end users, these people that needs to book a ride, these people that need to become an Uber driver, right? So they build an application and then they state all the specific functions they want this application to do. When user log in, this user should log in with an email and a password, and then they should see a click button that says login. All right, that is the business analyst defining the requirements for that application. I want us to pay attention as I explain. All right, so softwares are not, you don't just see the softwares that are on your mobile phones, on your laptops. They don't just get there by default. Some people behind the scene that define the requirements for those applications, and they didn't only define the requirements, they made the developers sit down to develop the applications. And they didn't want, the developers did not only sit down and develop the application, they have the tester do what? Run test through the application. And then it gets what down to the end user, which is you. You install it and then you use it. Alright? When you use that Uber application on your phone, you don't care who developed it. All you need from that app is to just book a ride. All you need from that app is to just check your location. Okay, I am in so street, number this, in Lagos State. All right, that is all you need. You are the end user of the application. Now imagine you open your application, you are stranded on a particular night, and you open your application, you have internet access and all of that, but as you logged into the application just crashed and you could not access it. Or that you are already a user of the application, of course you have registered, but then it's telling you wrong password, wrong whatever, and then you've forgotten your password, and then you are just there, you don't have any other alternative. What we are saying is that for an end user to be able to access an application very well, then it means that these three amigos have done what? Have worked properly on them. So, what exactly is software testing? And who is a software tester? What traits or what qualities should a software tester possess? Number one, attention to details. Attention to details. Communication, fast and curious learner, and critical thinking. These 4 points, of course, we have a lot of other skill sets that you need to become really very good at software testing, at identifying critical bugs, at identifying defects, at knowing when a function is not necessary for an application, or knowing when it is to let go of certain use cases. All right, you have to pay attention to understand. That's attention to details. Communication means that you know that this is not going to work. You are not just knowing it in the corner of your bedroom, but you are communicating your feedback to the developer. You are communicating your feedback to the business analyst or the product owner. All right. So these days, face it, back then we call them the three amigos, 2010 to 2015, but now we are in 2024. Imagine. So a lot of methodologies have evolved. When I talk about methodology, I'm talking about the way in which we work and we execute our task. It has evolved over time in technology. So it's we no longer really make use of business analysis. We talk about product ownership now. Product owners, we talk about the agile methodology. We are no longer trying to do waterfall, and a lot of so you're going to, of course, have an assignment where you read up on all of these things, because this is practically an hands-on session, right? That's why you are looking at a PowerPoint that is just cards. So we'll quickly move through it, and then we use the last 1 hour to have an answer, to do an answer. So we say, I talked about quality assurance the other time, and I talked about software testing. If you are looking at this picture, look at it very well. Very, very well. You see there we have quality assurance. Here we have quality control, and then we have software testing. See, software testing is like just one out of what? Out of three. Yeah. 1/3 of the whole thing, right? So this only means that you are not just a software tester that say, okay, I've tested it, is working, and that's all. No. So we are training you to be more than just a software tester, to be a quality assurance engineer. All right. So a quality assurance engineer, all right, starts working from the basis, from when we say, okay, we want to develop this application, up to the stage where the application is released. All right. That is the work of a quality assurance engineer. And the quality control and measures we put in place, all right, to ensure the quality of a software, right? So let's continue. And what exactly is software testing itself? We say software testing are the processes or set of activities that a software tester or a quality assurance do, all right, in order to ensure the quality of a software. All right. So they are the set of activities. And what are these set of activities? We will come to that. So this next slide is talking about SDLC. SDLC says, number one, for you to have your software as an end user on one end, or as a developer, or as a who is that other person? BA, right? Business analyst or product owner. We said you have to plan. Okay, so in the business world, or will I say in marketing, when people want to start a project, they say they do is it quantity survey or feasibility studies, right? So what they do is they look into it. Can we in the long run execute this project? How long will it take for us to execute this project? What are the things we need to execute this project? The questions of what, why, how, you answer them at this stage. You plan. Planning of the software test requirements, planning of the environment and the technical needs of the software, all right? So it is planned. And then the next is defining, all right? You define the requirement, and then you do what you design. Designing, at the point of designing, you are talking about the architecture of the software. Don't let me use a big grammar. You know what architecture means in a literal terms, right? You are building you want to erect a building, and then you have the architecture design a plan for it, and then when you are looking at the diagram, you already know how the building is going to look like, right? Yeah, that is what designing is all about. So for our product designers, or we call them UI/UX or product designers, right, they look into the requirement document, all right, they read it, and then they design it. And then when we come to look at it, we project and say, okay, yes, this is actually the software we want to develop. It is exactly how it should be. This page should follow this page. This button should follow this button. This click should follow the next, right? So we talk about designing, and then the building, which is like a development, right? And then the testing. So but after testing, what happens again? We deploy, because it does not stop at testing. We test and say, okay, we have tested this application. Oh, we can say that the application is good to go, right? When we are saying it is good to go, we can release it, then it means that we can deploy it for the access of the users. Who are the users? You and me. We are the ones that we go to Play Store, we go to Apple Store, and then you download the application. If it was not deployed, you will not be able to even view the application on your phone to say, okay, I want to download it. All right. These are the simple terms you need to understand when it comes to software testing. All right, yeah, I put a quick tip. I said user story, use cases, sprint, test planning. What all this means is, in the process of planning the development of a software, you talk about the user stories, we talk about the use cases. We are going to make use of all of this as we continue with our training. We also talk about scaled agile framework. What does it mean? So the agile framework, it's in simple terms, it's like sprints. What we mean is that people work in incremental process. Developer will develop a feature, and as soon as it develops A, maybe it's supposed to develop A, B, C, D. As soon as it develops A, it releases it for the tester to test, and then moves on to B, and then releases it for the tester to test, and then move on to C. So it is planned in what? In sprints, and in what? In weeks. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and all of that. And then the communication process in an agile environment is seamless. What that means is that everyone has access to each other. The tester has access to the developer has access to the product owner has access to who? To the tester, right? So that is what it means to practice a what? An agile framework. Let's continue. We have the STLC. These are terms you should understand. So STLC is what? Software testing life cycle. Did I talk about the SDLC? So the SDLC is the system development life cycle, right? And the STLC is what? The software testing life cycle. We call it life cycle. We call all of them life cycle because they are all in processes, in stages. When I defined quality assurance the other time, I said they are processes, set of activities. All right. Now, STLC, talking about STLC, we were talking about, test suite, test reports, bug tracking, test closure. These are the terms we use. So what does all of this thing means? Number one, requirement analysis. So when the product owner has finished highlighting all that is needed to develop the application or the software, what happens? A software tester will go through it and also analyze it. Okay, in the process of analyzing, the tester is looking at how impossible a particular feature will be. You say, oh, for this release, we want to release, okay, maybe they are planning in January, they want to release in March. Say, for this particular March release, I don't think this feature should go with it. We are already looking at the future, we are looking at the process, and you're already thinking this will not work. That's requirement analysis, right? This is also what this means. Also, what this also means is that the software tester is being carried along through all the phases of the software development. What that means also is that the developers and the testers are not working in silos, all right? But they are working all together synchronously, all right? So we have the requirement analysis, we have the test planning, we have the test case development. Test planning, the purpose of test planning or having a test plan is to analyze, all right? Analyze how the test is going to be tested, who are the testers that will be involved, all right? When or when the test is supposed to begin, all right? When the test is supposed to close, maybe test closure. What are the exit criteria? We talk about entry criteria and exit criteria. And what entry criteria is saying is that the conditions to start testing. Is this application even sane enough for us to test? Otherwise, we will return it back to the developers and say, oh, developer, you have cooked beans for us. This application is not sane enough for us to test, all right? Now, when we get to the point where we start analyzing different types of software testing, maybe you will understand better. But at the stage of test planning, those are the conditions you are defining. So for test case development, at this stage, you start writing possible scenarios. Write the test scenarios, you write the test conditions, you write preconditions, post conditions, test execution, iterations, test iterations, and a lot of others. When we get there, in fact, this is what we'll be working on majorly this week, test case development. All right, moving on to test environment setup. Sometimes in some organizations it is done by software testers, in some other organizations they're done by the test data team, and in some other places by the DevOps, that is development operations, and in some other places by the software engineers. So for that area, it's not fixed. So yeah, but what test environment means is that you have a ready environment, you have an interface somewhere that you can test, you have a configuration in place somewhere where you can access the application and then run your test. So we have what? Test environment setup. We also have test execution and then test closure. I've been mentioning test closure. But test closure means that at this point, all the tests you have carried out, every different types of tests you have carried out is done and it is closed, right? So we have what? Test closure. Now, moving on, we have SRLC. I've talked about SDLC, I've talked about STLC. Now, I'm talking about SRLC. The reason this presentation is not huge, is not big, is because, like I said, this bootcamp isn't for teaching the theoretical aspect of software testing. It is only hands-on. So when you come across this, when we start the hands-on, it will ginger you, like you will be reminded to go pick it up, to go read it up. All right. So we have SRLC, that is software release life cycle. Software release life cycle. There is the software development life cycle. There is the software testing life cycle, and there's the software release life cycle. So it starts with development, and then what? Test, and then what? Release. And everything goes what? Synchronously. So we say for release life cycle, we have pre-alpha, we have alpha, we have beta, release candidate, and production. What all of this grammar means is that release can be in cycle. Like I explained the other time, I said, oh, March release. You can decide that this software version 1 release will be in March. Version 2 release will be in August. Version 3 release will be in what? December, right? So it is the same software. However, by the time you are releasing the next one, you have added more features to it. Maybe what you released in version 1 had only what's the name? It had only upcoming membership. Maybe the one you are not going to release in version 2 will be what? Premium membership. And then, so you are adding more features for the users to the application, right? That is one way of thinking about software release life cycle. Another way of thinking about software release cycle is that for a particular software, for you to get to the production release, because the end result is what? Production. We want it in production. For a particular software, for you to get to release, then after test closure, we have to get to pre-alpha. What that means is that we will release this application to a particular environment that it will have access to some users for us to test as if they were the real life user. All right? As if they are what? You will see one of the examples we will be working on, the applications we'll be testing. That application is not for the users out there. The one for the users out there is different. But this one was released at a particular stage just for it to be tested for some categories of people. And then after those people have tested and they've seen bugs and all of that, they fix it and move over to the next phase, alpha. At alpha stage, you do the same thing and then you move what? To beta. But conditions for each stage changes. And the kind of users that test for each of those phases also what? Changes. Because you want something perfect for the production phase. All right? Depending on which kind of application you are testing. So at the end of the day, after deployment, we have a maintenance phase where all you do is to maintain the application. When new users have registered, you are maintaining, the application, you're checking the database, you are doing all of that, at the back. All right, so all you do is maintain. So we have what? Release software. So in short, everything we've been talking about for the end users to be able to see this application in the production phase, it has to go through a process called what? The DevSecOps lifecycle. What DevSecOps lifecycle is talking about is simple. Number one, build the application. Number one, plan the application. Number two, code it. 3, build. 4, test. Release, deploy, and do what? Operate and monitor. That is all. All right. Let's move on. There are 2 applications in front of you. I have talked about the Uber application earlier. The first one you are looking at here, or the one is it right now, is Uber. So I'm pointing to Uber now. This is what you see when you log into your Uber application. As soon as you log in, you see this. Now, the one on this other side is the Bolt application. What you see as soon as you log in to your Bolt application is this, right? Now, it is now a case of usability versus what? Functionality. What is usability? What is functionality? You are designing an application for some users to use it. You already know the kind of users that is going to use your application. Maybe if it is a cleaning application, you already know that some certain kind of categories of people are going to be the ones using this app. So you have an expectation. right? Now, that is what we call what usability. But for the functionality, different kind of functions are expected for this application. It is not just a one-way street. All right. Now look at Uber, look at Bolt. If I'm to pick one for usability, all right, I will pick Bolt. Why? Because as soon as I log in, I can quickly go straight to what? To where to here. I will go straight here and I will click on where I'm going to. It is that simple. I can see my map, all right? And as soon as I don't know how fast their service is, but we are not talking about service now. We are talking about functionality versus usability, all right? So, both is here. But what do you think about Uber when you look at Uber? Uber has a lot of functions. As soon as you open it, you can see ride, package, awali, all right? There's ride there. There's what do you call this one? Delivery, right? Logistics, and hourly or whichever way they are measuring that. A lot of other functions that this particular Uber is doing, right? So if I want to book a ride, even though where to is there, I might be distracted by all these images. Am I right? The user interface for Uber is good. Very, very good. But what can you say about Bolt here? Nah, it is not. It is as if I'm looking at Google Map. You know how Google Map will look like when you open when you launch Google Map. So that is the way Bolt is looking like. Look at it, think deeply about it. I said one of the attributes of good software tester is the ability to pay attention to details, ability to think critically, ability to communicate feedback. All right, I think I gave you four points if I'm right. All right, so this is Uber and this is what? Bolt. Let's continue. Now we have test case development, which is what we'll be working on. Let me check my time. Okay, we still have some time. So we have test case development. Look at this car, a very old car. I don't know if you remember this car. Volks, right? Volkswagen, old Volks. And if there's anything you are thinking in your mind right now, in fact, let this class be interactive. I want to hear, if you want to say something about this car, please just unmute and say something. When you are looking at this car, what are you thinking? What comes to your mind? Anyone? Of course, old. So it's like the old version of Yaume, right? If you remember old Yaume, you know the way it looks like. But if you see new Yaume now, you know that it is different, right? So software evolves. Technology does what? Evolves. That is the same way your test case development should evolve. All right? So you are working on a software, you have written a lot of test cases for it. But so far, they are still developing features for it and they are still upgrading those applications. It means that your test case document is not enough. What it means is that you will keep adding test cases, changing test cases, and you will keep adding to it. That is what it means to do what? To write a test case. A test case development, it means that it has not stopped. It is in development. You keep extending it, you keep developing it, you keep adding to it, you keep changing the results, all right, depending on how you test the application, right? So the new Volkswagen does not look like this anymore. So what will I do? I'm going to change some of the things I've written in my test case and add to it and say the door has changed. the boot has changed. The tire is now using this tire now. It's now using this kind of window. The engine has, is using another kind of engine. Even the body, the metal, it has changed to another kind of metal. It has been added to it. I mean, added and addition, subtraction, whichever way, there is an upgrade. All right. Softwares are constantly being what? Upgraded, constantly being improved, constantly having different versions. Features are always being released. These are the terms you will keep coming across when you're talking about software testing. Now, what is different in the one you are looking at here? All right. You have this car again, but painted. I mean, it's no longer white and black. Apparently, it is the same car, it's the same background, the same features, all right? But something has changed, and it is the color. So when it changes, when things change, what do? All right? You add the new features to it. You modify your test case. You modify your test technique. All right? That is how the profession of software testing it keeps changing. Now, test case development is what we'll be working on, and when you're talking about test case development, you must consider all of this. Number one, the test case ID, the test case description, the preconditions, the test steps, test data, expected results, post conditions, actual result, and status. We've been talking about test case. Somebody wants to ask, what is a test case? All right. You're all Nigerians. You remember this song. For your case, I like to break it down so that you actually understand the basis of what we are talking about. All right. So when you look at the case in a literal terms, you are talking about a situation, a condition. Am I right? Case, a situation, a condition. Now, combining test and case together, you know that there has to be an action term on this situation. This is a software. What is this software going to do? What is the functionality? All right. And when you're talking about functionality, you're talking about function A, function B. It's not going to have just one function. Then you're talking about, the first function, the second function, the third function. I'm not talking about function in terms of coding. I'm talking about function in the aspect of I log into an application, I sign up, I register. Before you were able to attend this bootcamp, you registered, right? So registration is a form of case, is a test case on its own. Signing up is a what? Is a test case. Logging in is a test case. Joining the class is a test case. I was able to join. Just click on, join the link, and it just brought you here. It's a test case on its own. So these are what we call test cases. All right. You have a job to do, and that is reading up technically on the definitions of these terms. So I'm going to send this document to us, so you go through them. Anyone you don't understand, I'll give you a link where you can read them up. So in short, the test case document we are going to prepare now, is going to have a test case ID, a test case description, preconditions, test steps, test data, expected results, post conditions, actual results, and then the status. Those are the that's the standard test case document. Those are the standard conditions a test case document should have. Attributes, that's the right word. These are the standard attributes a test case document should have. All right, let's move on. So And last but not the least is the hands-on session. We have a project to work on, which is what the Google Mail account project. Right. Yeah, we're going to jump onto it. So moving on, guys. Don't look at that one. Oh. I know a lot of us will look at it. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is the presentation I just gave us now. However, I have the, I don't know how that did not get, so we'll be working on, let me copy this and post it in the group chat. We'll be working on this. We'll develop a test case document for this application. Okay. Okay. So yeah, if you have seen that link, you can open to it. I'm very sure you're using your laptop. Please use your laptop. It's important that you are using a laptop, not a phone. Okay, I will share my screen. Oh, am I sharing my screen already? Okay, yes, I'm sharing my screen. So if you are signed into Google Mail before, sign out, it could be confusing. Sign out of your Google Mail, right? Sign out of your Google Mail and then open this link again. All right? Open this link again. Now, what you are looking at here is Google Mail, and it is hosted in a different environment, different from the one that you have been working on, that the one that you've been seeing normally. The one you have been seeing normally is let's check. This is the normal Gmail. Let me sign out. Okay. Dismiss. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. All right. So this is where is the link again? I am muted. So sorry. Okay. Yeah, I think it signed me out as soon as I signed out from my Gmail the other time. So I will be using, how do I do this? Okay. We can still do it this way. So this is what I sent to you. A version 2 of a Gmail account. All right. Now, if you are looking at this, this is a web application, all right, called Gmail, which you are already used to. But we want to design a test case document for this Gmail account, all right. So when you enter your URL into, what browser are we using? When you enter your URL into this browser, Chrome, all right, mind you, you can use a lot of other browsers. Firefox is there, Internet Edge, Explorer, and so on. I'm using Mac today, probably because we are not doing much. But as the weeks, because we still have another application that we'll be working on. It's not only this application. So I will use Windows for those, because I think I have a number of people that are using Windows OS. So I will use Windows for the other one. But this is just Mac. And that's not a problem, since what you are working on is just test case development. So we want to develop a test case, all right? Want to write a test case for this. So I'm going to start from the scratch, all right? Just so our newcomers can understand what it means to write or to develop a test case document. I will call this Google account test case document. Test case. I'm not so sorry. Thank you. I thought I was sharing my screen. Okay, so we are starting this from the scratch, and I'm calling this Google account test case. Can you see my screen? Hey, can you see my screen? Okay, so I created a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet, and I named it Google account test case. All right, then what I'm testing is here. I gave you a URL the other time. This is the URL. All right, so I can come here and say test application. Okay, test test environment. Then what's the test application? The test application is, let me see, Google Google Mail account. Okay, so the test environment is this URL I gave you. Never mind the formatting of this. So I'm not used to Excel anymore. So, but I'm very sure you can see it. At home, you will try to format it well, because this going out, it shouldn't be going out. So we have test application, we have test environment. All right, we have test data, right? We have test data, and we have test team. Somebody is joining. Okay, so you write test data if you have a specific data in mind to use, not in mind, that's been assigned, that been given you, that's been created by the test data management team, or that has been written in the test plan as the test data that you will use to test the application. So then the testing team or the individual that is involved in designing this test case, you put the name there, or the team name there, right? I think there's still one more point to put here, but let's continue. So now, looking at this application here, what you want to do is you want to be able, let's say the end goal of the application is for users to be able to do what? To sign up. You want to be able to sign up successfully, right? We want to be able to do what? To sign up successfully, right? Let me see if I can do this in incognito. It's better I use, can you still see my screen? Okay. Great. Okay. With this, I will be sure that I'm writing, I'm doing the right thing. Okay. So I have an interface. I can see create a Google account. Okay. So that should actually be the name of my test case. Okay. So create a Google account. So let me go back and say create Google account creation, right? Okay, so that is what we want to do. Now, don't forget we talk about test case ID when we're presenting. We said test case ID. Your test case document should have your test case ID. You should have your what? Your test case description. Let me just wrap this thing. Okay. Okay. So you should have a test case description. What other thing? Oh yeah, do you remember? Someone should tell me. Precondition. Okay, then followed by test steps. Okay. And then expected results. Okay. Post conditions. And then the actual result. Okay, so we have the test case ID, the description, bring conditions, test steps, execution, results, post condition, and actual results. All right. So we're talking about test case ID is just very simple: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it has to carry the name of the test case application. So I'm going to use GAC, meaning Google Account Creation. I will say GAC_001. All right. That is from the name of what? Of the application. _001. Usually it's better you start with 001 instead of 1, just 1. Why? Because you don't know how long this test, you don't know how many test case ID you are going to have, how many test cases you're going to have in this document. So it's better to just start with 001. So like that you continue till till 999. All right, so usually it shouldn't be that long. If it will be long, it's better you just create another sheet and split it up so that it will be readable. So what is the first thing we'll be checking here? I opened it in the incognito mode because I needed to be able to access the application very well. So you look at something, a new look is coming soon. Google is improving, blah, 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 blah. So this is an old, it's just like that old car that you saw. Now, this is an old interface for Google, for Gmail, for the Google account creation. Now, I have this interface and I'm thinking as a starter right now. If I were to think in a professional angle, right, I would think in a different way. But I'm looking at this and I'm saying, for a user to be able to sign up properly and efficiently with this application, what are the things I need to check for? All right. This takes us to understanding exploratory testing. Remember that we said that for you to design your test case document, then you need to have a requirement somewhere, whether it is in a design format or it is in a document format or is in a user stories format somewhere where they say, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to create function A, B, C, D, and these are the conditions. It will be doing this, and this, You have the requirements somewhere well defined, all right? But we are doing an hands-on right now and there's nothing defined. So we say in this case, we are conducting an exploratory test. What exploratory test checks for is to check the condition of the application. All right, whether you have a defined requirement somewhere or not. So that is what we are doing right now. We will explore this application, and then we design a test case document. All right, a test case document that will work in exact way this application is working. And in the process of testing it, we will be able to point out defects or bugs. All right, we did not define defects, we did not define bugs. By the way, if you're looking to know what all of these terms are, then you need to go check our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel that we used for training in last year. We've uploaded some videos there already, so you can just check them up, look them up. They are all in well detailed, right? All of those terms are defined there. So create a Google account. So I will say that this is what create a Google account page, right? Number one, let me go back to my document and say, what's the time? We still have time, right? So I will say that I will check for the URL and confirm that I can actually access that page. All right, whenever you paste this URL in a browser, you confirm that that page is accessible. That's the number one test you should think about. If I paste this link in a browser, if I paste it in Chrome, in Firefox, in Internet Explorer, will I be able to access this application? It means that any user anywhere, no matter the browser they are using, they should be able to access this application. Right? So there is a way a tester will think. A tester is supposed to be pessimistic. What that means is that you are expecting the application to fail. All right? You are expecting that this function will not work. You are thinking in a negative term. All right? That is a natural mindset of a tester, which is different from the way the developer will think. The developer will think that it should work. Why? I have been coding this, I expect it to work. That is normal. But a tester will say, no, I have been testing it. It should not work. All right? So that is the tester's mindset. A tester's mindset is always trying to look for bugs, to look for defect, to look for error, to look for failure in any software system. All right, so we will say that navigate. Where is my okay? Navigate to the application URL using any of these browsers. Then you say Google Chrome. All right, you say Google Chrome. You say Firefox. You say Internet, maybe Edge, and Safari, whatever, any, etc. So the test case here is that you are testing, you want to check. Now the precondition will say user is previously not registered, or maybe user has no account, user has no Gmail account or so, or user uses Chrome by default. you know. Now, you have a precondition that by default, even if it doesn't work on any other application, on any other browser, then it should work on Chrome. That's a precondition. Then I will say, what are the test steps? You say you open your browser, right? That's number one. Open your browser. What's number two? Within the same box, please. Two. You say enter the application URL. Enter the application URL. So that's just so the application should open and show or and display. So when you say it should open, what is your expectation when it open? Your expectation is that this application should display this. So you say and display okay. So post condition, probably you say user will create Google account page, create account page. I'm just thinking it might not really necessarily have post condition. By the way, not every test cases has a post condition or a precondition. All right, some will have precondition and will not have post condition. Some will have post condition and will not have what? A precondition. So not all. That's what you should note. So I'm not sure. I will think about it if I can think about any post condition for this. Post condition is saying that what are the conditions that should happen after you have navigated to this page, because we are still on navigation. So after you have navigated to this page, this is expected, that is, we want this page to display, but after that, what other condition? All right. Now, what is the actual thing we are seeing right now when we navigate to this page? When we navigate to this page, what do you think we are seeing? All right. The actual result is that we are able to see the create Google account page, which is what we expected. So you will say result is as expected. Oh, I thought I was typing. Result is as expected. All right. Now, what is the next thing? The next thing here, so you move to the next test case. Now that you are on the page, what do you want to do? All right. Follow through. If you are on that page, start thinking. Engage your thoughts. So we will create it to a level, and then we will stop, and then you will go and finish the test case development at home, and then tomorrow we will review what you have done. All right. So first name, last name, this is optional, and then first name is compulsory. So you will check. So you will say, okay, validate that user can input the first name, validate that user can click on next without inputting the last name. Why? Because it is optional, right? Then you can also validate that you can also like input the last name. So let's see. Let's go to the document here. You say validate that user can input the first name, okay. You can also do another one and say validate that users can input their last name. Then you say validate that users cannot proceed. Validate that user can proceed without imputing the last name. Okay, so the last name is optional, it's not compulsory, so you validate that you can actually move to the next page without imputing the last name. So also there is a next button there, if you remember. So you say validate that user can proceed to the next page when they click on the next button. Okay, so one of the things that is going to improve the way you test is when you get it right when it comes to test case development, because it is what test cases you put down is what you are going to test. If you can't recall, if you omit any test case, then it might be really very difficult for you to test what you have not written. All right, so we have validate that user can move to the next page. So sometimes you want to log into some platforms and then the submit button is not working and you are wondering what is going on, right? It was not tested. It's possible it was not tested. All right, so validate that user can input their first name. So before you get to inputting first name, how do you get to that place where you input your first name? That's what we call the test steps. Number 1, open your browser. Number 2, enter the application URL. What is the next thing? Number 3, input your first name. So what that means is that your test step is what? Progressive. Your test steps is what? Progressive. So I will put number 3 here and say input your first name. Okay, what do you think will happen next here? It means you're going to copy all of this. Why? Because you are still on the same page. You want to input your last name. It's going to be a number 4. All right, number 4, input your last name. Okay, now we have validate that user can proceed without inputting the last name. So this is more like you are not inputting last name. All right, You're not inputting last name here, all you do. So you see this method of writing test steps. This method of writing test step is showing independency. What independency means is that test case number, let me number it. Test case number 4 is not dependent on test case number 3 just because it is progressive. No. Test case number 3 is not depending on test case number 2. What depending means is that for number 3, for you to execute number 3 or to check if number 3 is working, all right, it means that it has to depend on if number 2 is what? Working, which should not be. All right, number 3 should be able to be executed on its own. When we get to execution, did you write test execution here or status? Okay, status. Okay, yeah, this is it. So when we get to execution or results, then you will understand. There's no status here. Actual results, status, test status, test. What test status is doing is to say if this application pass or if it fails or if it what? Fail. I was writing fail. It didn't fail, but I'm just putting it here. So in case you run number 1 and it passed, and then you got to number 2 and you're trying to execute and then it fails, then you put fail. But if this fail and you cannot proceed to number 3, then it means that you have a major problem in the way you design your test case. All right, because if this is failing and it has stopped others from passing, then you have a problem with what you have written. So each of the test cases has to be independent on their own. All right, so we have validate that user can proceed without inputting the last name, and validate that user can proceed to the next page when they click on the next button. All right, when they click on the next button. So we have that. Then when they click on the next button, it actually means that they probably have executed the whole of this 4, right? And then we have click on next. Okay, so we have click on next button, right? So that is what we have here. What is the expected result? You expect that when user has input their first name, that the first name appears right on that text box, right? That text field. Let's see. If user actually writes their first name as Temi, then it should appear here. The fact that you see this is not enough, but even if you see this, if you type and it accepts your input as you have typed it, then it's working as expected. All right, so what is the expected? That user input is displayed as expected. Okay, so we have user input should be displayed as expected. All right, so this can be the same as this. User input, you can specify. Please specify what is that input. First name. Okay, what's the user input for this last name? Okay. um okay, so in writing test cases again, you must look for errors in for typo errors, right? Okay, and usually you let your team members review it for you, because one way or the other you might have omitted some, omitted some, some typo errors. Okay, so we said validate that user can proceed without imputing the last name. Okay, so what should be expected here? User should be able to proceed, okay, without imputing last name, since it is optional. So post condition. So since it is optional, you say last name is a condition here. It is optional. So if while you have checked, you have tested, you discover that the result is as expected, that is, you got to this phase and it as expected, you got to this phase and it is as expected, then your result is as expected. What that means is, let's go back to the application and check. So we say user takes in Temitope, and then I want this user to move on without last name. Then I click on next. All right. Sorry, something went wrong. Okay, let's see if it is not our network. Something went wrong. Okay, so we can start again. Someone is laughing into the microphone. Hello, am I the only one hearing that? Oh, okay, let's continue. I have, let me just put anything there. I'm not going to put anything there. Aha, I think it's the network. So we have this. I was able to move to this next page without inputting the last name because it is optional. So it is working as we expected. But what if I actually input something here? All right. If you also input, you should also be able to do what? To proceed. All right. Now, when you click on next, what do you expect to see? You expect to see basic information. All right. So we'll continue with our design and say, okay, we've not written expected result for this one. Validate that user can proceed to the next page when they click on the next button. User should be able to proceed to the next page when they now this next page where we are getting to it, this is where it becomes tricky, and this is where I'm going to stop for today. Yeah, for because we have 30 more minutes, I want to take in questions. In the next 20 minutes, we will finish this, and then the next after 10 minutes, we will ask you questions, and then we will close. Then you will continue with the design, and then tomorrow I will review your work, the one you have designed. You are designing the entire this application tonight, versus tomorrow. Before the next lesson. All right, so we have basic information here. This is where it becomes tricky. You see this interface here, you can see a drop down showing a list of months. You have day. You're familiar with this kind of form. You can input numbers, right? Of course, for day you cannot input 60 something. Oh, you can. Okay, let's see if it will go now. So these are the things that you need to check for. We have month, we have day, we have year. So this is where it becomes tricky. Months, they've already listed what they're looking for months, so you just pick one. For day, you input it. You already know that there are 31 days in a month. In a month, yeah. So you can never have 66, if I'm right. So for year, you already know that it's always 4 figures. 2000. So it does not exceed. It doesn't even allow me to exceed, which is fine. You also know that when you're creating a Gmail account, those are the conditions that I think if you are below 18 or below a certain age, you have to create a kid account. Maybe, and if you are above a certain age, then it means it is an adult account. So these are the things that Google Mail is supposed to be checking for as you create this account. So let me assume that I was born in 2014, which of course should still be a child. Okay, so I will say April 66. You should also check for this, right? And gender, I will say male, because okay, I thought there was no female there. Okay, there's a female there. All right, so we have this form here. What do you think you will check with? So you will say validate that user can select months for date of birth. That's one. Validate that. Okay, somebody is trying to enter the room. Let me check. Okay, let's continue. So I said you will check this and say validate that user can select a month. All right, so you also for date of birth, validate that user can input day for date of birth. Validate that user can input year for date of birth. And then you come here, you say validate that user can select a gender. All right, then you will now say validate that user can click on next. Now, while we are doing all of this thing, you will discover that we are focusing more on the form here. All right, but there is still something down here if you look very well, which I'm not going to talk about today. Go and do it as your homework. So we have something here, we have some other links here, which of course as a tester you must pay attention to what details. Now we say validate that user can select month, right? So we'll come here and say, where's my validate that validate month for date of birth, right? Validate that user can input day. You will now put a condition and say from 1 to 31 for date of birth. All right. Validate that user can input here, right? For date of birth. Meanwhile, there's something we have omitted in the design of our test case. If anyone remember, let the person say it. You can remember we have omitted something. Think and tell me what we have omitted. So, validate a user can input year for date of birth. Validate that user can select gender. Select a gender. Okay. Okay, so we have all of this here. And I said we have omitted something. We call it test scenarios. I will get there. All right, so we have validate a user can select month, can input day, can input year, can select a gender. Then the last thing will be validate a user can click the next button. Okay. Validate. Can select. Okay, the user can click on the okay. So we have all of this here. Now, what is our test steps? Our test steps, okay, so we can have a precondition here. What precondition can we have here? We will say that for child accounts, we can say age less than 18. Then we can also say for adults accounts greater than 18. Okay. So it can be equal to less than, greater than, or equal to 18. All right, so we have this as precondition. Now, when you say validate that you can select a month for date of birth, then before you get to that point, what are the steps that you have gone through? Then you see how we can reuse all of these steps. So when you are writing your test case, I say number 1, it should be progressive. Progressive, that is the flow of one action to the next. Then when I say they should be independent of each other, it means that execution of one test case does not lead to the failure or does not affect the other test case, right? So that's that. And then I wanted to say a third, right? Can someone remind me what other condition? What are the things you put in mind whenever you are designing a test case document? Whenever you're writing your test cases, we said, okay, input your last name. So after inputting your last name, you proceed. Oh, I should have copied this one. This one is the exact one I need. So after proceeding, Oh, no. So after proceeding, I will then input day, input what? Select month, sorry. Select month of birth from drop down list. Okay, select month of birth. So after selecting month of birth, then you input what? Okay, so this is progressive, and the control flow is dynamic. So look at it here. One inputs number 7. I will say, yeah, the third point. I knew I wanted to tell you the third point is reusability. Usability, okay? The fact that you can reuse test steps is important. It is key in designing your test cases. All right. Number 1, the fluidity and the flow or the progressiveness of your test case. All right. 2, the reusability of your test case, of your test cases, meaning that you can actually reusing test case means that I can use step 1 to 6 of test case 6 here for test case 7, step 1 to 6. That's what it means. And independence also means that failure of one test case does not affect the other. That is, one test case does not, the execution result of a one test case is not dependent on another test case. All right. Those are, I think I mentioned 3 attributes, right, of good test cases, of designing good test cases. So we have number 7. What is number 7? Validate that user can input. So this is where I'm stopping. I'm stopping on number 10 here today. You will continue on your own at home. Select months of birth from drop-down list. Okay, that's fine. Then input day of birth. Input day of birth for day of birth. I can now say check precondition. Okay, check precondition. Now, user should be able to, you already know that one. Let's continue. Validate that user can input year of birth. So year of birth is the next. I will reuse this. Year of birth. Yeah, it's input now. Input year of birth. Okay, so a user can select a gender. So select a gender. Okay. Notice the keywords I use. Select, click, input. You don't use enter. What do you mean by enter? Are you talking about enter as in the keyboard enter? All right. Or, For clarity's sake, just use input, not enter. So we have select gender, select a gender, select a gender, and then validate that user can click on the next button, because click is the action you are performing. It's not select. Select is if you have a list of options and you have to pick one out of those options, you have what? Select. But if you are performing a specific action that has to require click, then you use the word click. And validate that user can click on the next button to proceed. So click on next to proceed. So there we have it. All right. So what are the expected results? User should be able to proceed. User should be able to select month of birth. User should be able to select month of birth. Okay. User should be able to input day of birth. To input day of birth. User should be able to input year of birth. Should be able to input year of birth. And user should be able to select a gender, and user should be able to click okay. Someone wants to enter. Let me see. All right. We have 14 people in the room. So we were talking about test case design, right? And we have only gotten to the second page of our application, which is what? Basic information. Oh, did I say user should confirm that they are on basic information page? Let's see. There must be a place in my test case document where I confirm that we are actually on this page. User can input their first name, last name. Okay, so this is where test scenarios comes in. All right. I was talking about test scenario the other time. I said we omitted it. Look at where I was looking for page 1, page 2. The page 1 has login with username, with first name and last name, if you recall. And the second page is talking about basic information like your date of birth and your gender. Now, in order for me to be able to have a very seamless test case design document, I need to separate my test cases into test scenarios. So what test scenarios does is to separate pages or action items into their different categories. Now, my first page is talking about my name, just basically my name, first name, last name. So I should have a scenario for what? First name, last name. All right, let's go back to my application. So let's assume that I click on the back button. How should we do it? Okay, this does not keep history. So I will copy this again and go back to my incognito. Okay, so remember this is what enter your name. So I will say user name, user name, create or register username. Okay, I think that will do. So I'll create another column here. Insert a column to this place and call it what? Test. No, it should be on the other side. So I will call this test scenarios. Let me say insert column to right. Okay, let me delete this one. Then I will call this test scenarios. Okay. Then I still remember this. Merge. I want to merge. Okay, I'll come back here. Okay. So I have scenarios. The first scenario we are talking about, if you look at navigate to the application URLs, I can say scenario number 1 is access application. Access what? Application. Okay, the fact that you can actually access the application, you're talking about, oh, I have a browser, I navigate to it, I input my URL, and after inputting URL, I could access the application. So we'll categorize that one as access application. Under access application, we have just one test case. Now, we will say register user first name and last name. So under register user first name and last name, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. How many do we have? We have 4 test cases. All right, we have 4 good test cases. So I don't know if there is a match here. Okay, so this is trying to show that I have like 4 test cases under this scenario. In products, when you're talking about in agile system now, we talk about user story, all right, or we can also talk about use cases. So in testing, we call it test scenarios. They are what will I call it? Possible cases that can be tested under this scenario. When you say register user first name and last name, what are the possibilities of test cases that I can test with this scenario? This scenario is saying, okay, for me to be able to check if the user can input their first name and their last name, then number 1, they should be able to type it in perfectly and it should display. Then they should input it. Someone is trying to. Okay. So we say they should be able to input it and then it should be able to get displayed. So that's a scenario. So you have scenario 1, scenario 2. Now, to another page, now it's another scenario. So it's a way of separating your test cases into different use cases or scenarios. That's a very simple explanation. Now we have validate that user can select date of birth. So we have date of birth, we have gender. So you will say validate, I mean, no. User date of birth, user date of birth. Under user date of birth, what do we have? Because it is scenario, you are not writing it as action items. All right. So you are not writing it as action items. User first name and last name registration. All right. So we have user first name and last name registration, and under this we have all of these items. Then we also have user date of birth. Under user date of birth, what we have, validate that user can select the amount of birth, that they can input day for date of birth, and they can input year for date of birth. So we have 3 under this. Okay, so I will merge this. All right. What other scenario? We have another scenario on the same page. However, it is different. This is talking about gender. So it's possible you categorize your scenario based on pages. And it's also possible you categorize your scenario based on categories. So date of birth is different from gender. However, both of them belongs to basic information. So I can decide to say user basic information and then put everything together. User basic information. So user basic information is going to be categorized along with gender, because now I am separating scenario based on their different pages, or based on their pages or functions. So merge, let me merge this. Merge all. So in all I have 1, 2, 3 and 4 scenarios. I thought I merged. Oh, sorry. Oh, you are not looking at that. Sorry. Okay. I thought I merged the basic information, first name, last name. Okay. Basic information should be merged with this. So let me merge it again. Merge all. Basic information. Yeah. Okay, so we have 3 scenarios in all. All right. So I think we are done here. Let me just review. User should be able to what exactly? my mouse is misbehaving. Okay. So I have result is as expected, because of course that's what we see here, is as expected. And by the way, they all passed. So you put here your pass, which is the status as at the time you're running this test. There's something also called first time pass. So first time pass is talking about the first time you run this application on this particular environment, it passed. All right. So that's what we call the first time pass. And there's also something called test cycle. And most of the time it's done in iterations. Iterations means in increment. And when you say test cycle, You are talking about the first time or execution cycle. Let me put it that way. So the first time you run through the entire application, those test case passed, some fail. You indicated that they fail. That's end to end. You ran an end to end for that application, and then some pass, some fail. You can say categorize it and say this is test cycle one. However, after the failed test has been fixed, all right, after they has been fixed, and then they've been reworked, and then now they've released another version for you to test, all right. The next time you are running test through it again, of course, probably you now have new test cases. But even if you don't have new test cases and you still have your old test cases, this time that you are running test through again, you will call it test cycle 2. So the old test case that failed, we have their history. We have, okay, they failed. Why did they fail? So when we get to bug tracking, you will understand this more. I'm bringing up a specialist. I don't know if you know Toby Fagbo. Toby Fagbo is coming on board to teach you a lot about bug tracking, because it's a very essential thing to know in software testing. So when we get to tracking of bugs, all right, you'll probably understand more about this test cycle of a thing. So the first time you run it, it failed. Now that you have run it again, it has passed, all right. But there are reasons it failed, and then it has been addressed. But it is possible that that failure will always repeat itself, right? It's maybe a potential or a critical or a smoke test case. What smoke means is, if literally smoke, smoke means when something is on fire, right? And it is literally dangerous, right? So there are some test cases that are literally dangerous. It means that they must not fail. It means that no user should have to go through an application and have to see that kind of failure. All right. So we call them smoky areas for a reason. And the reason is because they are critical. So we have test cases that fall to this category, and when you are testing them, there are essential steps you take as a tester to ensure that those bugs are fixed before they go into what? Into production. So that is what um yeah. So that is all about today's class, right? I think I've exceeded time, and please ask your questions, all right? So we are going into question and answer. So what you will do at home, mind you, we are not done with this application. We have only treated um, this page and this other page, right? So what you will do now is you will go home and you will continue. There's another page here that says create your Gmail for signing into your account. And when you create it, then you have next and next and next, and you already know, right? So yeah, thank you for joining us in today's class. So we have managed to conclude this first class and this first week. Tomorrow is just going to be a review of what you're doing at home today. So assignment is read up on different types of. I'm going to send this the PDF version of this document to you on WhatsApp. Try to read up on the different types of software testing. Essentially, read up on it, and you can also, and as much as possible, try to complete that assignment at home. Also, this one that I've designed, I can send it to you so that you can just complete it moving forward. All right. So that is all for today. And thank you for joining. All right. Yeah, I'm going to stop here.